We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight.
This is basically me and John calling long distance to talk about how we met and collaborated for Vader Down Part 1 and now the Rise of Skywalker trailer. So John, let's start off. The question that I actually always had for you was, how do you choose who to work with? So like, what do you look for as like a director, and you also have a music background. So for example, when I sent you the opening bit for you to hear what my work is and everything, what goes through your mind? Like, how do you figure out who's a good match for your project?
Well, I don't really have much experience working with composers. I've only worked with about 3 composers, and like even with the other 2, like feedback from me has been very minimal. Like this is like the most involved I've been in the musical process, which is, it's new for me, but I also really like just like throwing ideas around, like having a lot more back and forth, because like this is the first time anything I've done has had an original musical accompaniment, because it's usually just like trying to remake an existing piece of music with old game voices.
Yeah, no, that
Choosing
makes
who to
sense.
work with, I don't know. It's like, I guess like you need to have, if you're talking like doing like video game style music, you can have like it be all like beep bop boop 8-bit sound, but it's, in order to one thing I wanted to do to set my work apart from all the other pixel animators that I can find on YouTube is authenticity. When looking for a composer, I'm not trying to see, can they replicate the video game sound, because I've composed video game sounding tracks, and I know that it's not hard to just apply video game voices to a composition. You need to like have some like compositional skill. It's all about respecting the limitations of the format. So yeah, that's what I try to do.
No, you're exactly right. And we've had this conversation between us before. It's not that video game music or even the limitations of Super Nintendo, right? It's not that that's easier. It's actually sometimes, I think I told this to you. This was one of the most challenging pieces I've done, because I've composed full orchestras before, and this was actually probably a little bit more challenging in that the limitations that were set for me, of course, it made me feel limited at the time, but once I started getting some experience doing that, I was just like, you know what, this is exactly like composing for an orchestra. I shouldn't treat it any differently. It's just that I have 8 inputs to work with, and I'm sampling Super Nintendo and specifically Super Star Wars, and I was like, hey, it's okay. Like you can compose this like you would an orchestra with real instruments. My job got a lot easier because I realized that the process was the same, but you're just working within the limitations of what would be Super Nintendo if we were making like a legitimate game for Super Nintendo. So that was really fun for me because it did take me out of my comfort zone, and it did give me a challenge to work with, but I learned so much just working with those limitations. I feel like I became a better artist overall.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's great to hear.
Yeah, I think we briefly talked about this. I think in our chats and stuff, because when you told me you're like you can't go beyond. I think you told this to me. You're like you can't go beyond like 8 instruments because that's you're like I want to stay authentic to Super Nintendo, and I'm like, oh my goodness, are you serious? At first, I was like, I can't. Like, I want to add this instrument, I want to add that, but like actually working within those limitations allowed me to be more creative because I could only work, at a time simultaneously with like 8 instruments, right? And then, so
yeah, well, that was also super early on, too. So,
yeah.
like when I was like, so how many instrument tracks did you use? And you said like about 30. I was like rubbing the sides of my head, and I was like, how is she gonna take this?
Yeah, no, I was like I was taken aback, and I was overwhelmed when I heard that I had to take out a lot of instruments and make it 8 to make it, to have it be authentic. And then also I tried to squeeze in some real instruments to add like an extra like oomph to the track and to add depth, but you were like, nope, we have to be authentic. And I appreciated that because we still got the same result with the samples that I used, but it did actually require me to think outside the box, which again, in the long run, I appreciate because I really was creative about it, and I made it work out. And I think.
Oh yeah.
It comes down to me being really happy that I worked within those limitations.
Uh-huh.
Because now it's so funny. Like after I did Vader Down for you, remember we were working on the Afra theme. So we can even talk about that a little bit. You had your version, I had mine, and we wanted to combine them. And I wanted to make like a full, real orchestral version of the SNES one that you and I did. And what's funny is that the orchestral version was actually easier.
Wow.
After I had done the I guess the 16-bit version for you.
Okay.
Which is odd. I don't think I ever told you that, but go ahead.
Okay. No, yeah, I was wondering what happened to that.
Yes, so I'm still working on it because it is full orchestra.
Okay.
And I'm just so busy doing legal. I graduated law school, so I try to do part-time work here and there, and of course I'm doing other freelance work. So I juggle my time, and the Afro theme is definitely still on my plate, and it's almost done. I just want to make sure I want to do a good job on it because I want it to sound like a legitimate track off of a cinematic soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, we should probably give some context that. I had my own version of the theme because I was originally planning to do the music, and like I know that like Afra is like a big character in Star Wars comics, like she's got her own solo series. So I thought that as I was animating the episode, I was just like throwing around score ideas in my head, and the Afra theme was the first one. But the approach I took was. That her character is basically Indiana Jones in space, so I wrote like an Indiana Jonesy type theme. And your approach was I sent you the Wikipedia article, which I think you read more thoroughly than I did, and like you actually just like thought about her backstory and you made it like actually kind of like mysterious, but also like sort of like tragic. That she's like mixed up in all these like shady
yes.
deals, and is with these like terrible characters. Yeah, but like your theme really like got to that, really touched on that part of her character. So yeah, if you found a way of combining them, I'm really looking forward to hearing that.
Oh, I did, and I'm actually really looking forward to sharing it with you because you've heard my version, and obviously you've heard yours, and we've worked with both of them, but finding a way to combine them, and it was actually funny because you sent me a video of Steven Spielberg and John Williams talking about, I think it was Indiana Jones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he had come up with two separate themes. And I think Steven Spielberg was like, why not use both, right? And then that's the theme. That's the current theme that we hear today. It was a bit of two themes that John Williams had in mind. So I guess that goes to show, you don't have to throw away anything if you think that you can combine it into a harmonious, complete theme. And I thought when I heard yours and then mine, I thought that could definitely be done because yours had this very kind of upbeat, but not, it sounded like a heroic vigilante theme, but it had like a dark twist to it.
Yeah, I tried subtly incorporating like Imperial March into mine, and including like a tiny little Indiana Jones reference that is it's very obvious. Like mine was very just homage filled. It was more focused on homage, and it was not as focused on character.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I thought you did such a great job.
Thank you.
And that's why I was finding a way to fit it into my take on it, because mine was very, yes, you're right. It touched on the tragic character that I saw, and it was definitely like a complete original composition that I thought about from scratch because I kind of had to think about Afra as a character. I like spent an entire 2 nights just thinking about Afra a lot before writing that composition because I wanted to really just, I guess, I don't know, think about her as a character and do her justice through the theme. So I think mine combined with yours is going to really be, I don't know, I think it's going to be really remarkable to see how it turns out from what I have in mind. I'm still moving things around in the piece that I'm working on. I'm still working on my part, but I have an idea of where to place yours.
Okay.
And I think it's going to work. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll keep everyone posted too.
Yeah, one of the most exciting things about Vader Down was like taking these characters from the comics and like just like putting them on screen for the first time. And I think that part of that is giving them a theme.
I agree. Yeah, I was really stoked to hear that I'd be working on original compositions while also, staying in touch with the whole John Williams vibe that he created for Star Wars. So there was that fine balance of making it sound like Star Wars, but having to make it original at the same time. So that was really fun to do, and that was new for me. So that experience was completely new for me, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I do want to mention that I think, at least on my end, it was really helpful that you had a music background because you were able to talk to me as a musician would, or as someone who has experience with music would. So that was definitely much appreciated on my end. I thought it made our communication easier.
Yeah. Well, I'm very thankful that you're so open to me saying, make it a little more like this. I haven't really had very many experiences like this. I know it's like a natural, like composer director thing, but it's a new thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what surprises me when you say that because, I don't know, maybe we just work well together, but I always felt like it was so seamless. And just so everyone knows, like the audience knows, you and I work long distance, so we've never met each other. So it's I mean it's interesting because I mean our communications have been limited to the occasional phone call or video chat to discuss a project and then just like chat, right? Like messaging. But you and I we're not in the same room cranking out a project. You know, you're sending me your your scenes, sometimes scene by scene or sometimes all at once. You know, for the Rise of Skywalker, you just sent me the video all at once. And then I, you know, make the track for it and we keep sending it back and forth to each other until it fits, right? So it's been really surprisingly seamless. And I think we just worked well together professionally. And I think it helps also that I have a directing background, so I know that the director has a vision. So I'm always going to be okay with sending a music track over, and if the director's like, hey, you know, can you change this, or can you add this, or can you just scrap that and come up with something new? Like, I will never be offended because it's the director's vision, and if I choose to work with a director, I know that he or she has talent and knows the direction of the project. So, yeah. So for me, I definitely love it when a director knows how to talk music and we can brainstorm and have fun about what direction to take a score. So, yeah, on my end, it's been really fun to work with you.
Yeah, well, it's great to have somebody like. It's great to have it not all be like 100% me. Like, it's great to like, it's kind of comforting to just like go like, okay, I'm done with like this aspect of it. Time to have somebody else just take care of the rest.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's like a level of trust too. Like, I remember for the Rise of Skywalker, basically, so you were still working on the trailer at the time, and you gave me a heads up. You were like, hey, you know, do you think you have time to do the music for me? Because you wanted to release it on time. And it was actually really fun because I kind of jumped on the project. I wouldn't say last minute because I had a solid 2 weeks to work on it, but I jumped on the project pretty easily, and I worked off of the original trailer. And then you were able to finish your version, right? Your remake of the trailer in 16-bit, and then you sent yours over to me when it was complete, and we had a couple of days to work on it together at that point. So I already had the trailer remake music on my end complete, and then your 16-bit video remake was complete, and then we came together and worked together to just polish it and take it to the next level. So I think you're right. It's nice to give a portion of the project to someone else to handle, and then, but you know, it requires trust as well. So like for me, I knew you were gonna come back with an awesome trailer remake, so I trusted that I could just go to the original trailer and time the music to that trailer, and I knew that it would lay over your remake seamlessly. So that was fun.
Thank you.
I think what we can do now is we could talk briefly about the trailer remake and what it took for you and me to get together. I think it was like the last 2 days, right? Where we got together and tried to perfect it as much as we could.
Yeah.
That was fun. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because there was that end chord, right? When the Star Wars title comes up. And you and we spent quite a bit of time on that alone, which I'm glad we did. But it was, I think it would be interesting for the viewers to hear the back and forth with that one, because I had sent you, I had sent you a decent start, and then you came back and said, hey, can you add like 1 octave higher, same note, trumpets, and more trumpets? And I said yes, and I did that. And then you and I were trying to figure out what was missing. Do you remember?
Well, it was
we found. Go ahead.
It was like a third chord, I think. My music terminology is very rusty, but adding in like another thing like add a level of harmonization to like get it to really, just almost to like support the other notes.
No, for sure. I remember, I think it was that I had added highs and lows, trumpets, French horn, and I think it was note E, and I had gone a couple of octaves higher and lower, and you were like, there's something missing, we need to figure it out, try to harmonize with a different note. So I think I ended up picking B. So it was a high note trumpet B, and that's that one note that you hear that kind of stands out for the end title card, and I really like it. But that was funny because I remember we were just sitting around trying to figure out what was missing, and it was just that B note. So that was fun.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, no, me too. I mean, the pacing and the timing is as spot on as I think we could have made it, especially with our time constraints. So that was, I mean, I had a blast doing that, and I think that definitely is a lesson to composers and directors, or people who want to get into composing and directing, is teamwork between the composer and director, because that was really, I mean, I remember it was a Friday, and we had spent a good chunk of Friday before I had to go in and get some work done on just making that end chord ring beautifully. Do you have any questions for me before we sign off, or anything else you want to say to people who want to work with composers or be directors?
I know that like early on when I was like starting out doing like these video projects, like I was doing them like 100% on my own, but I was almost afraid of collaboration at one point in my life. Especially in the past 2 years, I've collaborated with more people than I had probably the past couple years before that combined. So it's something that, like, very understandably some people are probably intimidated by, but it's very, collaborating with somebody can bring up elements that you hadn't even thought of, that just make your ideas, it brings them to another level.
I agree. And, I guess my message would be for people to be open to collaborating, even long distance. Because I honestly, I'm floored that you and I work this well together, and we have literally never met before. So I think people might get surprised by that. So yeah, magic can definitely happen with collaborating, even with people who are in a different state than you, or even people who are across the ocean. So like the music artist that I'm working with is based in London. We've never met before, but it's like we've been friends for a while, because we just definitely connect on an artistic level. So definitely, I agree with you. My message for our viewers would be, if they're interested in doing something like this, they should definitely be open to collaborating, because, I don't know, you get pleasant surprises. All right, cool. So this wraps it up. I think we've been talking for like 30 minutes, so I'm definitely going to have to cut this down.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening, and stay tuned by subscribing to my channel and subscribing to John's. There are more projects coming up, either, collaborating with John or separately, so stay posted.